Thanks for joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, we're coming to you from our outstanding studios that they provide for us as well. And boy, I'll tell you what, our guest, Charles Davis, provides football knowledge. This guy is busy. I mean, his responsibilities and duties with the NFL Network, with CBS Sports, with his podcasting, I mean, they are endless. The NFL is a year-round entity. Charles Davis's communication about the National Football League and his ability to give thoughts and opinions on the National Football League are second to none. So we talk about a lot of things about the National Football League, but what I really was most interested in, what was your take on the 6 picks the Cincinnati Bengals made in the NFL draft? Shamar, Stewart, Demetrius Knight Jr., Dylan Fairchild, Barrett Carter, Jaylen Rivers, Taji Brooks. Charles Davis does a lot of research. He is meticulous with his preparation and his research for games, for everything he does covering the National Football League. The draft is no exception. He has some good things to say about each and every one of the Bengals draft picks. Thanks for joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, we're emanating from our incredible studio. They do a phenomenal job giving us a great place to work, and you can't ask for any more than that. Other than maybe you can ask for a great guest when you're doing a podcast, and that's exactly what we have right here. The one and only, the one of one, that would be Charles Davis, NFL analyst for CBS and for NFL Network, CBS Sports, of course, and NFL Network. You've listened to him. I mean, this time of year with the draft, you've listened to him doing the Reese's Senior Bowl, the Combine, Path to the Draft, other draft shows, podcaster. He's an unbelievable communicator. You've also, if you've enjoyed Madden NFL, that series, you've seen and heard him doing that as well. So you've grown up with this guy. You've grown up with Charles Davis as a communicator of football, and there's none better. This guy is as good a communicator as there is, and Tennessee Titans preseason games. Now you're the number one analyst for college.
Sorry about the background noise.
No problem.
Hopefully that'll be taken care of very quickly here.
But you're now the number one analyst for college football. I mean, dude.
And down the road, we got a little time for that.
Time, okay. But how are you?
2026.
What's that?
It's 2026.
2026. Right. Gary Danielson retires.
Yeah.
Great Gary Danielson.
Great Gary Danielson.
But you're great as well. And I mean, how do you find time, man? I guess you have a year to figure it out, but I mean,
yeah,
with all that you do, everything that we talked about, and now you pick up college football to boot, you're a busy man. I'll tell you, your frequent flyer miles must be nuts.
Dave, you're awfully kind. I appreciate it very much. And you know as well as I do, I could just flip it around and say the same thing about you, because you and I have known each other for more years than we're probably carrying to count right now.
I hear that.
And how many years have we crossed paths at airports, at stadiums, right? At preseason meetings, you name it. We saw each other everywhere, and we all, we worked our way up through the ranks. And anyone that we're fortunate enough to have watch and listen to us, if we go into their history, we would find a lot of the same things. I mean, that's what makes the world go round. People work, people have to do their prep. People have to do their jobs. People have to do the extras. People have to travel. People have to do 2 jobs, all the things that you and I are, kind of talking about here. I think we're the lucky ones, because more times than not, if we go to a gathering, cocktail party, friend's house, hanging out at the airport in the waiting area, and you're talking with some people who are nice enough to talk with us. They want to talk about what we do.
You're right.
9.9 times out of 10.
Yep.
I know you're going to ask people, hey, what do you do? What are you into? Whatever. And I would bet you that if I watched 100 of those conversations, when you ask that question, 95 of those people, maybe even more, will tell you what they do and finish very quickly with, man, but tell me, I want to do what you do. Like what you do is, and so we always have to keep that in mind. And I think that we do. I think that, you know, I know you very well. I know you keep it in mind. We work in the toy department. I mean, that's where we are. We are in the FAO Schwartz of jobs. And no matter what angst we may have, no matter how hard it may get, no matter how much travel we have, no matter if we're staying up the night before to cram because we had 3 other assignments,
right?
No one cares, first and foremost. And second, we also know that our friends would probably trade with us in a heartbeat if they could. So we're very fortunate that way.
So the National Football League season, as we know, has become a year-round thing. I mean, you work, you work on a year-round basis, basically, with the National Football League. It's crazy.
We have to in order to keep up. And the league has been brilliant in how they've done that, because when we were kids, it wasn't year-round.
No.
Pitchers and Catchers Report was the back page of the sports. Okay. And that was when things really got good. Baseball was America's pastime.
Yep.
The NFL draft might be a blurb in your local paper about who your team selected, even your number 1 pick. I remember being a kid seeing Giants select Rocky Thompson first in NFL draft. This was it. This was the article.
Rocky Thompson. That's
Rocky Thompson, who was a kick returner wide receiver from North Texas.
Yep.
And the rest of the paper, the rest of the above and below the fold, baseball, 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 baseball.
Yeah, I mean, unrestricted free agency. Yeah. You know, it starts with, I don't know. You pick a time of the year. I mean, there's unrestricted free agency. There's the draft. There's college free agency. There's secondary market of unrestricted free agency. Before that, you know, there's all the mini camps, the OTAs, the preparation for all that sort of thing. I mean, it like I said, it's a year-round thing. The players, the current NFL players, get a little bit of a break. You know, they catch their breath and for a couple of weeks or whatever, and travel with family and have some fun. But I mean, they're back. I mean, it's OTAs. Some are mandatory, some aren't. It's mini camps. It's training camp. Man, it is definitely year-round. When you look at it, I mean, I guess Roger Goodell, I have to tip my cap to. You know, Tagliabue did a hell of a job, obviously, in like you mentioned, elevating the National Football League. But Roger Goodell has taken it and just run to another level, hasn't he? It's incredible what he has done.
He really has. And, you know, you go back to Pete Rozelle, who really is the beginning of it all, because he's the commissioner of where the game is today, because he was there for the merger.
Right.
And people have probably forgotten that his rival commissioner at the time of the merger was Al Davis, who was the commissioner of the AFL, and totally got cut out of the deal when they merged. Like, he wasn't even a part of it. They came and told him that they were merged, if you believe. And by the way, you're now out of a job. There is no job for you. And so he goes back and runs the Raiders quite successfully for a great number of years.
Yep.
But that was where it all began. Pete Rozelle, I think his lasting legacy, and there's a ton of it, all right? We don't have time for it. But to me, I'm going to boil it down to one. The P word, parity. Pete Rozelle wanted parity. He wanted everyone. Back then, we were playing 14 games in the regular season. You were playing 6 preseason games.
Yep.
Starters played a lot more in the preseason. And preseason was played all over the place. You weren't really playing in your stadiums very often. You would play in Sioux Falls. You would play in International Fall. You would play almost anywhere.
Yeah.
Within your own home stadium. It was almost a barnstorming tour in preseason. All that being said, parity is what he wanted. He wanted everyone to be 7-7 because he wanted every local market to be invested at the end of the season. Well, that lasting legacy has carried through from Pete Rozelle to Paul Tagliabue to right here to Roger Goodell. How many years ago was it, Dave, when we realized at the end of the year there's a lot more? We're not playing starters. tanking wasn't the right word, but it wasn't necessary to do this. This game doesn't count the same. And remember what the league's answer was? Okay, we'll make the last couple of weeks really divisional games. Definitely the last week of the season, all divisional games, because divisional games tend to have more of an impact. So yes, you can still rest your starters on certain teams, but it has heightened that last week of the season than what it had before. That started with Pete Rozelle. Everyone in it all the way till the end. Guess what? We're all in it now, and all everyone's doing is trying to find a way to have every game mean something in week 17, right? And guess what? We won't be long before we'll be at week 18 because we know we're headed that way. But each one of them had their things. Each one of them has presided over good and bad. But the lasting legacy, and I started with Rozelle, is what kind of competition can you have all the way through to have the local market fans excited and in it, which is part of the reason that every year it comes up, can we throw out division champs and just do it by record about who gets to host home games in the playoffs, who does this? It's not fair that a divisional champ with a 500 or below record is hosting a home game. You know, last year we had Detroit and Minnesota both 14-3. One was the 1 seed, the other was the 5 seed. Everyone saw that as imminently unfair. Take it to the owners. What did the owners say, Dave? Nope, division champs get home games.
Yep.
It's a big deal. And to me, that goes all the way back to Pete Rozelle. Take care of the home market. If you win a division, which should mean something, you get to host. And yes, we're going to have some times when it seems really, really unfair. The weird part, and I tell everyone, go check the teams that won their division with a sub 500 record, and then check how they did in their first playoff game. They won more than you expect. It is stunning sometimes when you look and see. Seattle at home against the defending Super Bowl champion New Orleans on the beast mode game with the big run by Marshawn Lynch and the explosion of sound. Seattle was 7-9.
Yeah.
Won their division and then beat New Orleans in that game. And I can hear, well, it's unfair. No one shouldn't have to go. Look, I get it. But protecting those divisions keeps your local base, keeps that fan group in it all the way through. And for the few anomalies that we have, I think it's worth it. I'm actually on the side of the people who want to keep it that way. A lot of people would say, you're nuts, Davis, and I get it, especially if you're in Minnesota last year. You're like, you got to be kidding me. 14-3, we're a 5 seed, and we got to go on the road to the Rams. Well, you not only have to go on the road, the Rams had the horrific wildfires, had to move the game to Arizona, and the Rams found a way to get it done in Minnesota. So all that being said, to me, it starts with Rozelle, Tagliabue, Goodell, all of them protecting and trying their best to keep the interest high in all markets all the way through the year.
The legendary Paul Brown, founder of the Cincinnati Bengals, also founder of the Cleveland Browns, but his whole dynamic was, building through the draft, because very rarely were you able to get a veteran player unless you traded for him. I mean, you
didn't have free agency then.
No mechanism. Absolutely. There was nothing happening there. If a veteran got cut and, he was a cut above what you had, you'd pick him up and waive your guy, or if you could consummate a trade somehow. But there was very little player movement. Yeah. And he was a big believer in the draft. Now, like we talked about, there is unrestricted free agency, and teams have done a good job addressing their needs and all that sort of thing, and unrestricted free agency. And it started with the Bengals really even before that, when basically Joe Burrow gets a contract extension. Jamar Chase gets a contract extension. T. Higgins gets done as a restricted free agent. So, I mean, they've taken care of the big three offensively, and they're paying them big dollars.
Yep.
So defensively, it's probably wise to address the draft from a defensive perspective, and I think in the AFC North, that's pretty much the case. I believe every first round pick in the AFC North was a defensive football player, if I recollect.
Dave, I think you nailed it. Well, I'll give it to you very quickly.
Yeah.
The Ravens took Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. I brought my sheet just to make sure I had it right. Okay. The Browns took Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan,
Yep.
and Pittsburgh took Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon, and of course your Bengals took Shamar Stewart, an edge rusher from Texas A&M. So you're exactly right. And does that not fit the AFC North? It fits it really well because it is a rock'em sock'em division now. You better strap it up tight. And you mentioned Burrow and Higgins and Chase. You do not have a general manager of record in Cincinnati, correct? Duke Tobin kind of runs the draft. What's he head of player personnel, whatever you call it?
Right, director of player personnel. Yep.
Joe Burrow is now a de facto silent partner GM because of what he wanted and what he needed. And the way I look at it is Cincinnati making the right moves, trying to address defense, because you don't have to have a top 10 defense, Dave, with that offense.
Yeah.
You have a competent defense. And let's be honest about it. There's no bigger fan of Lou Anarumo than the person sitting here right now. I was thrilled when Apples picked him up. I love Lou Anarumo. And things just expired at the end, and it just didn't work. And we get that, right?
Great man.
During that run, were the Bengals ever a top 10 defense?
No, middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack, right? Very strategic about what they did. They could make it tough on you at different times, right? They would get the key takeaways, right? They'd be in the right places. They did all the right things, but they weren't dominant. They didn't. You didn't go to sleep at night and go, "Oh my God, these Bengals may bury me." But they were a good, cohesive, competent unit that at times played beyond their rankings. That's kind of what they're looking to recreate. I mean, that's really what you need. Because with this offense, Dave, if you had this offense and a competent defense last year, you're safely into the playoffs, and no one wants to play. Look, you remember at the end of the year, everyone was like, please, can you knock Cincinnati out? Right. No one wanted to play Cincinnati in the playoffs. No one wanted to deal with Burrow and that offense and the whole deal, because you get to the playoffs, the ball bounces wrong one time, and you go home and they keep going.
Yep.
So the collective on the AFC side, when Cincinnati finally was eliminated, you could hear it around the league. This collective, oh, thank goodness, did not want to deal with them. Now, you look at what Duke Tobin did, right? Shamar Stewart, go and get Demetrius Knight, the linebacker, which makes a lot of sense because I've heard a lot of Jermaine Pratt talking about not being there anymore, and Logan Wilson. They played a lot of football together, right?
Right.
And then you go down to the fourth, Barrett Carter, linebacker from Clemson, who was the running mate of Jeremiah Trotter at Clemson. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., whose dad was so great with Philly, and now he's in Philadelphia, and here comes Barrett Carter. And then, you're just looking at all of that and you're saying defense has to be addressed. Well, they addressed it. And it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes now for Al Golden and the rest of the crew, because I do believe we all see it just be a competent unit, and Cincinnati should have a chance to win more ball games than they did the last two.
Yeah, and when you look at it, at the offense, Mike Gesicki, we talk about the tandem at receiver, and they signed Mike Gesicki to a nice contract, unrestricted free agent. Yeah, and I mean, this guy can flex from the tight end position into the slot. He can be in a 3 wide receiver package. He can line up at the end of the line of scrimmage and run routes from there. I mean, they have a way to attack every quadrant of the football field at every level of the football field. And with number 9 throwing the football, that's pretty dynamic, isn't it?
We stretch you horizontally and vertically, and we make you try to defend every blade of grass or fake grass or whatever it is that you're out there. That's who Cincinnati is. They sound like a college football team. They really stress you defensively. If you're playing Cincinnati, Dave, when you were playing, how often did you run into 4-2-5 alignments? Only on nickel downs, right? The whole deal.
Second and third and long.
And that was it, right? How many people are playing 4-2-5 from the jump now?
A bunch.
Okay, we're getting that fifth defensive back on the field, and I think of my college football roots, and I think of people like Gary Patterson, the former head coach of TCU, made his bones with a 4-2-5. And I sat down, had plenty of time with Gary, and he talked about how that 4-2-5 in college football gave flexibility to address anything without having to make substitutions. I think that's where we're getting with the NFL now. People are sitting in it. The Buffalo Bills sit in that 4-2-5. Doesn't matter whether you bring Derrick Henry at them or whether you're running a spread. they're in that 4-2-5. That's the defense they're most comfortable with. That's when they have their best players on the field. We have gone from being in sub packages, right? What we call nickel, dime, all those things. We call them sub packages. We've gone from being in those 30% of the time, 20% of the time, back when you and I were roaming the earth, to now that's 80, 85% of the time. And I don't think I'm wrong on that number, because I remember years ago, it was high 70s. Yeah. When I watch games now, people just sit in their 4-2-5s. We're seeing 3-3-5s, depending. And that third one is usually not a linebacker. It's another defensive back sitting in that spot. Yep. So that's where we are. And those teams who are willing to line up and play big person football and beat you up and stick with it for 4 quarters, I think can have dividends. But Dave, we don't train that way. We don't have camp that way. And offensive coordinators, God bless them all, they do not become known as offensive wizards if you run the ball 40 times a game.
Yeah, right.
You don't get that reputation.
Right.
Unless you are flinging that bad boy around. So It's very hard to get to that stage.
Flinging around with a lot of formations, personnel, window dressing, motion. It's like, I'll run a few. I'm going to run them a million ways. I'm going to give you all kinds of window dressing, man. You're going to have to sort through all that. But, you're right about the 4-2-5, though. The Bengals are a great example. Lou Anarumo lined up in it.
Yes, he did.
Al Golden, it's his base defense. 4-2-5 is his base. So they stay right with it. So they're a great example right there.
You live with it, and that means your 4 up front have to handle a lot of the run game to allow your 2 behind them to run to the ball and make tackles. And when the Cincinnati was at their best, when DJ Reader was at the height of his game, Sam Hubbard off the edge, Trey Henderson off the edge, BJ Hill coming over and becoming that guy, that's when they were at their best, because they kept Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt clean, and those guys were good for 140 tackles a year each. So that's what you're getting out of that. Like, okay, this is how we'll control the run game. And then the 5 in the back, now you're able to do everything else. And, of course, with Lou, those safeties, when he had it going, right, when he had Jesse Bates and
Von Bell.
Yeah, Von Bell, right? As Lou would call it, my shortstop and my second baseman. Right? If he had his shortstop and second baseman, and I still remember DJ Reader one time in a meeting talking about Lou and what was going on, and they'd had some trouble back there. And I said, how's it going? And he goes, until Lou gets his baby set, nothing's good for any of us. And that defense knew where Lou's bread was buttered, is with those guys back there, because those were the ones that controlled the action for him moving forward.
You mentioned it, and we talked about it with the AFC North. Every first-round pick was defensive player. I also think, the Bengals, in unrestricted free agency initially, they addressed the interior of their offensive and defensive line. In the draft, they did address the interior of the offensive and defensive line. They basically, I'm putting Shamar Stewart as a guy that can play inside and outside.
Agreed.
Because technically, they didn't really, they didn't really address that position, defensive tackle, in the actual 6 rounds of the draft. But they got Dylan Fairchild, and they also they got the big offensive lineman Jaylen Rivers.
Rivers, Miami.
Yeah, big monster,
big
man.
People.
Oh, big people. So
and that's the key. Like they decide we're going to get big. You know? And as you mentioned, addressing that interior is a big deal for them, because as much as they fling it around, if they can get back to running the football. Like Joe Mixon was such a hammer for them. It's time to run the football. Will Chase Brown be that type of a guy? That's kind of what they're looking to do as well.
Right. And Taji Brooks can be that kind of guy. He's
Taji Brooks. What a great young man. Oh. He was a finalist for the Academic Heisman Trophy Award.
Was he?
The National Football Foundation, the NFL, it's called the Campbell Trophy.
Yeah.
And Taji Brooks, not only was he piling up yards on the field, but he was a finalist for the Academic Heisman out of Texas Tech, which for us old people is one of the great stories, because there was a time when Texas Tech had a running back who won the Doak Walker Award, which is the best running back in the country. and had like a 0.0 grade point average that semester because he knew he was going pro and didn't have to go out. So they had to change the rules about getting the and fast forward multiple years, and Texas Tech has a guy who did it well both ways. I thought about that last year. I was at the awards event. I remember thinking about it, and I was hosting, and I decided it'd probably be a good idea to not bring that up. Let's just let Texas Tech have their moment. But that actually happened. That kid was the best in the country, Doak Walker Award winner, and then it came out he hadn't even gone to class that semester because he knew he was going pro. He's already academically eligible for the semester. He didn't have to worry about it.
It's a bad look.
It really was a bad look later. Yeah. And they had to change some rules. But this time, Taji Brooks took care of business both ways.
I'll tell you, this kid, I mean, he's a little dynamo, 5'10", 230 pounds. Not little. He is a dynamo. I mean, low center of gravity. He's got that contact balance. He's got power. Yeah, good description. He's a rock. He can make you miss a little bit, though. He'll run over you,
He's got a little bit. He's not just running the flesh.
Little wiggle, yeah.
We just left Green Bay in the draft. You remember Vince Lombardi's adage about the running game, run to daylight.
Yep.
This kid will find daylight.
Mentioned Stewart being able to play, inside and outside. I think the Bengals would like to have him on the edge, but he can also handle it.
You go inside those subs, Dave. You go sub packages and you move him inside, have him rush over guards. His quickness should win in there. And to me, it's going to be interesting to see at what weight he reports. Because over the last 2 years, when he was in the 265 range, as the lanky speedster off the edge. And then last year, he added weight.
290.
Yeah, I think he thought he needed to be bigger.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was as dynamic and explosive at 290. Be very interested to see what Zach Taylor and Al Golden, and when they got their heads, what are they telling this kid to come in? Because I did see him during the run-up to the draft process. And the last time I saw him, Dave, he was around 267. And I thought, okay, now we're talking. This is what we're talking about, because it was him. And it's funny because it's him and his running mate at Texas A&M this last year, Nick Skirton, who come from Purdue and played light and was dynamic. And then he gets to Texas A&M and he gets to 280, 285. And he's not as dynamic off the edge. And I watched him in the pre-draft process. Last time I saw him, he weighed 257. And look like that guy again. So I think that some of these guys have this feeling like I've got to add weight, I've got to do this, got to do that. Sometimes you just need to be what you should be naturally, and that's when you're at your best. So it'd be interesting for me to see what Cincinnati wants him to play. My guess is they'll want him lighter, and then that way he can work inside if you want him in the sub packages too. One
thing looking at Stewart that he can do is he can knock you back, man. I mean,
doesn't he, Dave?
When he hits you in the middle, boy, this guy is a surgeon. I mean, at the size we're talking about, for him to be able to have a vertical jump of 40 inches, a broad jump of 10 feet 11 inches, and run a 4.59 40, that's illegal, man. That should be illegal. I mean, that's a genetic freak.
That is just wrong on every level, isn't it? Because I mean, if I had springs in my feet, right? If I had pulleys on me, I wasn't doing any of that stuff. If the 40-yard dash was 35 yards, I wasn't doing that. I mean, it's just all this is just when you watch these youngsters go, and especially with the training for these things, because it's such a weird deal. You train to get ready to play a football season, then you train to win the combine and your pro day, which is different.
Yeah.
And then you got to get back to training for football again. That's where, and that's why when people talk about rookie wall, when a guy kind of gasses out, just remember, folks, they play a season, they go right into training for the combine and what have you, depending on how deep their season goes. Then they go from there to, they're going to be in OTAs and minicamps starting, today, tomorrow? Like, it's going to be very soon.
Yep.
OTAs and minicamps. And then they've got to get ready for a season as a rookie and try and play another season all the way through. I kind of look at it like the WNBA players. Like the WNBA players, they just got done with their college basketball national championship game. They start camp like now for their season. So if you're wondering why people hit the wall and gas out at the end of the year, I'm just going to let you know this is a big reason. They're essentially playing seasons, no break. After their first seasons, when they truly get their first true break, And that's often why you get a big jump your second year.
We got a couple of minutes, Charles. I don't want to abuse my privilege of visitation here with you.
I'm the one privileged.
But give me a comment or two on Demetrius Knight Jr. I mean, here's a kid that athletic, good size. He played quarterback, so he understands what defenses are trying to do to take away his offense, or what he should do defensively to take away an offense. What offenses are trying to do to beat defensive football teams. He can diagnose. He can get them in the right play. Leader in the huddle, super command, super presence. What do you think about Demetrius Knight?
Like him a lot. Extremely productive player. He's a 3-school player, which I think you and I have talked about before. It used to be a red flag. Now it's just like, okay, he's 3 schools. Yeah. Okay. Kind of what he does. Georgia Tech, Charlotte, and finished at South Carolina. But what I like about him, besides the fact that all those things that you discussed, Dave, he knows his why. We always ask, what's your why, right? His why is wife, 2 kids. When he was at Charlotte, he would play games and then come home, know they didn't have enough money for everything that they needed, would finish a game and then be a DoorDash guy that night to raise more money for his family.
Unreal. Gets
his why in a big way. All right. Going to South Carolina for NIL money was a big deal. It wasn't that he was necessarily looking to leave. It was like, how can I take care of my family better? And he was able to do that. And I know nowadays we don't care about age anymore either. He's 25 because he came through COVID, NIL, all that other stuff. He's going to be fine, but he's exactly what you're looking for to add to your roster.
When you said the question why, that was a great Paul Brown question. He goes, I know you guys are going to know what you're supposed to do, and you can memorize it, rote memory, all that sort of thing. But I'm interested in the guys that know why you're doing what you're doing. And that's what Stewart, Knight can do. I mean, he can provide, he's got answers to the test. He knows why. When the defense presents something, he knows why he's supposed to get to whatever he's supposed to get to from a play standpoint.
Yeah. About, he didn't have to run. He didn't have to rummage through the old mimeograph stuff to find the test like Bluto did in Animal House, and then he comes right. Then he gives it to all the other guys at Delta House. It turns out it's the wrong test.
So let's talk about the big interior offensive lineman out of Georgia, Dylan Fairchild. I mean, this guy's one of my favorite picks. I mean, 2-time undefeated high school wrestling champion. Didn't lose a match. So in my mind, I remember playing against Tim Crumry. High school and college wrestling champion. The balance, you can't get them off their feet. The flexibility, the hip flexibility, the ability to bend at the knees and not at the waist, and get that pad level down as a result of that. And if you do get them out of balance a little bit, the ability to counter and rebalance themselves, because of the wrestling thing and the core strength and all the other things that wrestling builds. Fairchild, admittedly, he's a better pass protector than run blocker. He's not a bad run blocker, but man, he is a seriously good pass protector.
Yeah, and Dave, everything you talk about with those wrestlers, and the other part too, I know that you experienced with Tim Crumry, is the whistle may blow, but they don't really believe the play is over. Right?
You're not done.
Wrestlers are never at that stage of it's over. The only time is if they get pinned.
Yeah.
Good ones like that don't get pinned.
Right.
So it's always a battle all the way through. As Bobby Bad used to say, it's not the whistle, it's the echo of the whistle. With those guys, it's the last remnants of the echo of the whistle before they consider a play over.
So talk about Barrett Carter a little bit more. I think you referenced him. I mean, give us your take on him.
They absolutely love him in Clemson. He's a guy that is exactly what we talked about with Demetrius Knight, understanding the game, being ahead of it, get team lined up in the right place. Very good at the run-throughs, rushing the passer, coming up and hit and tackling people, can drop into coverage. But overall character, quality of person, and all that, you go grab his coach Dabo Swinney, you better have some time when you say Barrett Carter, because he will talk about him being one of not just his favorite players to have coached, but what he thinks is one of the all-time greats of who a person is, in addition to being a great football player in Clemson history. That's how they view Barrett Carter.
Yeah, 3-down player. I mean,
Yeah,
how valuable are those guys?
Come off the edge as well. You can move him. One of those linebackers move to the edge and come off the edge and rush the passer too. Smart, in the right place all the time, always prepared. You get the idea.
How about Jaylen Rivers? We talked about massive. I mean, he is just his pass protection is pretty stout.
Yeah, and he's played all over the line. So it's a matter of where Cincinnati wants to plug him in, and his versatility helps him. You know, Dave, what are they keeping? 8, sometimes 9 offensive linemen on game day, right? So, and can you be versatile? Can you play multiple positions in case somebody gets dinged? Can you go from guard to tackle? Can you be a swing here, a swing here? Can he snap the football? At the Senior Bowl, he took some snaps at center. He played guard. He played tackle. And you're right. That is a big man. Whenever they get in the huddle, you know, you see the huddle, and his head was always a little bit above the other guys, not because he wasn't big. He's just a big, massive guy. I can't wait to see where Cincinnati plugs him in. My guess is they're going to work him at both.
Yeah.
And be able to have a good swing guy.
And we talked about Taji Brooks already, obviously. The other thing about these selections, Charles, is the character/football character. You know, these guys, half of the 6 draft picks were captains of their football team. The first guy, one of the first guys they signed in free agency, Cross, is a captain of this football team. So talk about that part of it. You know, when you're building a culture, bring in people of this caliber.
Yeah, you hear that across the board from different people. And look, you go back to Paul Brown, as you talked about, who's really the father of modern football. Then you talk to a Bill Parcells, and he does that quarterback formula. You remember the quarterback formula? Must be a 3-year starter, must win 2/3 of his games, must be this. One of the things he had in there was captain. He wanted a quarterback who'd been elected captain. A quarterback not elected captain is often a red flag. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's almost like watching the movie Draft Day. No one came to his party. You know, it's like, okay. Yeah. Now, that was cinematic. But it's the types of things, because let's face it, how many times does that become an issue or a story if a quarterback isn't a captain after his rookie year, right? So from starting really with year 2, although some of them get the captaincy as rookies, for the most part, people want to know that people are gravitating towards that person. But to take it past that, a lot of franchises put a value on what you're talking about. I remember when Atlanta got good under Thomas Dimitroff as the GM and Mike Smith as the head coach. They were very conscious about draft picks, especially the deeper you got into the draft. A big tiebreaker was, what kind of leadership does this kid provide? They wanted winning programs. They wanted people who had been captains, things of that nature. They wanted to come in ready to go, because that Atlanta franchise they took over, they weren't winning and they didn't have a lot of leadership. And then it became something that became very important to them throughout their drafts. Didn't mean that they wouldn't select a guy. But, Dave, if you're considering multiple guys and you're looking for the tiebreaker under that Atlanta crew, being a captain, coming from a winning program would often win the day for them. And I know it feels like forever ago. It wasn't that long ago. They built Atlanta into a heck of a franchise. Heck of a franchise. Yep. NFC Championship game, finally got to a Super Bowl. This time it was Dan Quinn and crew that got there. Wow. Okay, that is part of their criteria. I can see where Cincinnati would want the same.
Charles, I can't thank you enough. I mean, I could do this for at least an hour, maybe multiple hours.
Yeah, you and I could do this for days on end. You know, they just put a camera on us and just and people could come and go as they chose. And they're like, man, those two are still going? My goodness. And we could just do that. I don't know how many viewers we would actually get when it's all said and done, but you and I'd have a good time.
No question about that. And as usual, I've abused my privilege in taking too much of your time.
Abuse. I'm really happy you did. Actually, I'll just go in and ask for forgiveness for my next meeting. That's all.
You are the all-time best, like I said, one of one. As good a communicator as has ever walked the face of the earth. That's my man, Charles Davis.
Bless you, Dave. Talk to you soon, okay?
Have the best one you ever had, sir.
You do the same. Thanks again. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Dave Lapham here. While games are over for the season, there's no off-season for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham or First Star Logistics. First Star Logistics gave away great prizes during the season, which which will continue with exclusive content in the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. So please do me a favor, subscribe to In the Trenches, hit the like button, and visit the First Star Media Group YouTube channel for exclusive content and special giveaways.